We're now just coming up to the top of the hour, and just like to present to you the our panelists for anyone who's just joined us. I'm delighted to be joined by Simon Foote from Ember Services. And Simon, you're going to be taking us through some of the latest trends in multi-channel.
Yes, try and take a slightly more operational view on what we're seeing sort of in the industry and the sorts of conversations we're having with our clients at the moment around how they're handling the minefield that is multi-channel.
And for people who aren't familiar with Ember Services, do you want to sort of explain to the audience?
Yeah, of course. So we're a customer management consultancy based in Covent Garden, and I suppose anywhere where there's an interaction with a customer, we've either got a view or a experience of how to do it differently, whether that be to help you reduce the cost to serve, whether it be about increasing revenues, whether it be improving CSAT or NPS or ease or effort, whatever it is you choose to monitor. Yeah, or a combination of all 3, 4 or 5 of those actually. So working with some of the UK's champion brands.
Okay, wonderful. Then we're going to be jumping across to Devon on the news desk, who's monitoring the chat room and all the discussions there, and we'll be taking the top tips and questions from the audience. And then Mike Murphy from Interactive Intelligence. Welcome back to our webinar. I think you're probably one of our most regular speakers that we have on our session. You're going to be taking us through some of the technology trends.
Yeah. Well, firstly, thanks for inviting me back, Jonty. It's great to be here, and I always enjoy these webinars. My sort of content today really has got 2 sides to it. I think multi-channel is kind of moving along pretty briskly. So I've got some new ways of thinking about multi-channel, which we've actually presented not too long ago. But I'm curious to sort of test the appetite of the audience with these new ideas. And then I also want to reflect on some of the challenges I see with how, if you like, the more established multi-channel deployments that are out there, how I can see there maybe coming to a point where they're causing problems necessarily, not necessarily helping the consumer or the customer. So they're the kind of things I want to touch on in my little section.
Okay, wonderful. And then we'll be doing top tips. Just a reminder that the slides are in the chat room, and you can leave your tips and your questions about multi-channel. And there's a bottle of champagne or a box of chocolates for the best tip. And Simon, if you could pick the winning tip, and we'll be putting that out on Twitter this afternoon. Also, there is a recorded replay available from later on this afternoon at callcenterhelper.com/recorded webinar. So very easy to the chat room, callcenterhelper.com/chat, and then once you're logged in, here is this link to download the webinar slides, so we can get those details up there. So I'd like to start off with a poll. I'd just like to ask the audience, what multi-channel services does your contact center do today? So do you do email? Do you do web chat? Do you do video? Do you have more than 100 FAQs on your website, which is my test of multi-channel service? And do you have a single queue for all channels? So if you'd just like to vote on the answers there. And
I hope 100 FAQs is not a target.
I think, to my mind, that's the sort of minimum of a sort of number of frequently asked questions you'd like to get.
But when I think about our website, I'm thinking, gosh, I wonder how many there actually are on there. I'm not necessarily sure I would know.
I think it's answers to questions rather than frequently asked questions.
Okay.
Video is sort of a topic that's been rising up. Simon, would you expect many people to be on video?
Video is one we've been talking about for a long time, isn't it? And people still worry about uniforms and the environment and people walking behind. And I think the kind of Skype integration into Microsoft is potentially one that could sort of disrupt that. But I'm not seeing it a lot, to be honest. I think a lot more web chat though.
Well, let's have a look at the results. 91% of people doing email. Growing all the time is web chat, which is going up quite nicely. That's last survey I think we did was 38%, and that's moving up almost by the day. 9% of people are using video. Be interesting if you could jot into the chat room how you're using video, and is that just for sales or is that for customer service? Only 28% of our audience have more than 100 FAQs. Mike, I think you're going to be talking later on about the service side of websites.
Yes, I am. Yeah, I think it's in a way I'm kind of Yeah, I'm not really sure it's the right way. I know it's a nice, convenient way online, if you will, to do it.
Yeah.
But I'm not necessarily sure it's the right way, and that's kind of what I'm arguing about.
Yeah.
So yeah, let's see what the feedback is when we bring up that topic.
Yeah. And 30% of people have a single queue for all channels, which is higher than I would have expected. But I guess a lot of people have been investing in some shiny new routing technology.
Yeah, I think that's the key really. If there are new investments taking place, then at least those capabilities should be there. So yeah, that's pretty good.
Okay, well I'd like to drill down in a little bit more depth and ask the question of the audience. How would you describe your online customer service experience? So in one or two words in the chat room, which is at callcenterhelper.com/chat, how would you describe your online customer service experience? So we'll just give you a chance to some of those in. Steve says inadequate. Alex says customer-centric. Let's have a look at, we've got Manon and Veronica typing in. Marion says it's excellent. It's 8.8 on a scale of 10. Jenny says average to 4. Tobias says quick and lean. Average says Omo. Claire says Amazon outstanding. So I don't know if you work for Amazon or whether you consider yourself as good as Amazon. Rob says old. Veronica says average. Sheriff says it's easier said than done. When you're actually doing it as a customer, it becomes a bit more complicated.
Indeed it does.
Lisa says there's online services very fast and customer friendly. So range of different opinions from very good to very poor. Not so much in the middle, I'm seeing there. Claire says, by the way, she doesn't work for Amazon. But it takes Amazon as the bar to
definition of outstanding.
Aspire to. Elaine says inconsistent, and I get tied in with inconsistency. Bradley says it all depends on which site you're visiting. So if you've got multiple ones in the group, and Scott says the service is mixed. So I guess a whole range of different opinions. Simon, does that tie in with your travels?
So I think it doesn't tell me my travels actually. I think the differentiator these days needs to be about data and how you're using that data, and then how you're kind of presenting that true omni-channel experience of kind of the service you're offering online, and then backing it up with the services you deliver offline. Really, I've got a few examples of where SMS seems to be slotting into the web channel quite a bit these days, where you're sort of applying for a product or you're putting in some details. There seems to be quite a neat joining up happening between the new wave of online capability with the old school SMS, and sending you with authorities or authorization numbers via an SMS sort of component. Validation. Seems to be validation. Yep. So that's quite an interesting move, isn't it, for an old tech in SMS, but it's sort of perhaps found its place again.
Yeah. So new school or old tech. It ties in very nicely. Eric describes their online experiences under construction.
Error 404.
Very good there. So we're going to hand across now to Simon Foote, and Simon is going to take us through his opinions on the latest trends in multi-channel contact centers. And I think you've got some very up to the minute information in here, Simon.
Yeah, I hope so. I think this is a sort of a well sort of trodden path to a certain extent, isn't it? There's obviously a buzz in the industry, and we're all talking about what's going to happen next. And so hopefully I'm going to share with you some sort of slightly new perspectives on what we see sort of happening in the marketplace. I think there's certainly a feel now that what happens in Vegas stays on YouTube, right? In my day, it was what goes on tour stays on tour, and I'm sure there's all various versions of that as well. But I think that there's no hiding, right? Whether you're a company, whether you're an individual, it's up there, and I have absolutely no idea how to get something off of YouTube once it's on there. But I'm sure there are people out there who absolutely know how to do that. But sort of just to prove how up to the minute and prepared we are, clearly there was the instance last night with Madonna on the Brits. I don't know how many people saw that, but as she fell giving her sort of the final performance there on the Brits last night. So I was quite interested to see how quickly that went viral, and within 30 seconds there was over 400 tweets on Twitter making reference to it. And I just had a quick look just a moment ago, and of the top sort of 5 videos on the YouTube which reference the Madonna fall, there's already been just over 500 or 500,000 views of her falling over. So, you know, that Brit Awards always kind of causes controversy anyway, doesn't it? So there's always something. So you start wondering actually whether that was, did she mean to fall over, or was that sort of, you know, just one of those? But anyway, she did. So the point is that also
looked like she was pulled rather than fell.
I think yes, exactly. As they pulled the cloak. But if you haven't seen it, well, no, maybe I didn't ought to recommend that you watch people falling over. But it's on YouTube.
If you haven't seen it, we recommend you watch it after this webinar.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I've just driven everybody else. Sorry, John. All your marketing has just gone to bits, hasn't it? So, right. Anyway, moving on. So, some of the areas I want to cover today. There's some clear themes happening around social and social engagement, which I just want to kind of chat through and understand a little bit, or present to you a little bit about what we think is happening and the implications. Got some examples and illustrations of what we've seen in the market and some organisations that seem to be taking a new or different approach to how they're handling this new trend, which is, you know, interesting. And then some thoughts around how you can start to consider your strategy and how you develop and deliver in this sort of very much changing marketplace that we are all operating in. So just a quick sort of teaser for you, or a quick sort of exercise. Perhaps you want to place an answer in the chat room, but interested in what you're seeing at the moment in terms of which way that tube is going. Is it going into the tunnel or is it coming out of the tunnel? And bizarrely, if you look away, it might even be going in a different route. So post your answer in the chat room. So I'm not going to give you the answer because actually there probably isn't a right answer. There's just perspectives, right? So I'm not professing to be the world's leading futurologist on latest trends in customer management, and I don't think there's anyone out there who really knows what's actually going to happen next, but there's quite a few indicators and emerging trends of what seems to be going on. And I guess the reason we join webinars like this and we read and gather the data we do is because we're trying to form our own conclusions around what's likely to be happening out there. So just a little bit of fun there, but if you've worked it out, anybody replies?
Some people say into the tunnel, some say both ways, some say it's coming out. A lot of people saying it's going both in and out.
Oh, is it? Oh, right. No, it is actually only going one way, actually. Yeah, no, it is. Anyway, moving on, enough of that. You can play with that at your...
Well, it's quite a long train.
It is a long train, yes, exactly. Yeah. And it's pretty empty as well, actually, so it must be a very old picture. Right, so a few of the kind of things that are going on, and I think we're all used to sort of seeing these sorts of stats presented in various different ways. I've just chosen to put them inside some pretty icons just to make them stand out a little bit more. But even in the space since the last time I sort of did one of these with you, John T, you know, the sort of movement in how people are engaging is changing markedly. So 25% of people are saying that they've actually complained in a public forum now, which is you know, beyond just making a complaint. This is actually about making it present in a public forum. 60% of consumers have written an online review in the last year, and I don't know if you're seeing this, but I'm certainly seeing that many of those organisations that rely on peer review are really starting to embrace this and make this an awful lot easier now to gather the data. TripAdvisor, you know, sending you an email or a tweet or a text or whatever it might be, post a booking, you know, that's really easy to do now. Amazon doing the same thing, you know, what do you think, review this product, and it's almost been gamified now in terms of touch your screen and click how many stars, you know, you want to rate the product with. So the actual suppliers are making that really easy for us to now give that feedback, because it's a fundamental part of their business model, so it needs to be easy, right? 29% of us are super user device junkies, right? So previously we've sort of talked about you know, how many people are going to own a smartphone, how many people have maybe got a smartphone and an iPad. It's, you know, it's emerging that, you know, most of us now have in excess of 7 connected devices within our home, whether that be an Xbox, an iPad, and in my house it seems to be you know, several Xboxes and several mobiles and everything else. Smart TV. I don't have a smart TV yet. Exactly, all the new biomechanical stuff which is going on as well. Actually, smart TV would be good actually, but yeah, I was going to make a sexist remark there about football or something, but I won't do that. So, looking for help in public forums. So, 17% of us have now actively sought support from peers when I've been unable to resolve something. You know, how do I do this? I'm not sure how to. One of my colleagues actually fixed his central heating system, having watched a YouTube video. Now, I wouldn't recommend that actually, and I wouldn't recommend you go to his house either for that matter now that he's done it, but he did it. So, and the fact that somebody had posted a video of how to fix your central heating in itself is quite interesting. The voice of the customer market is growing still. I don't know if you're seeing that, Mike, in your experiences, but 30% annual growth rate in the voice of the customer market. And I guess importantly, it's not only about collecting that data, it's about how you interpret and use it and how you drive it into doing something different, But that market still continues to grow, so let's not forget that whole customer feedback, CSAT, SAT collection sort of approach that still needs to be embedded into your processes.
Well, what's quite interesting is this customer satisfaction is now tying back into sales. It certainly has done for hotels, but things like insurance now, people looking on Trustpilot to see if the insurance company got a good reputation, and that's starting to, so whereas before customer service was something we thought was important, there is now a good, clear financial benefit of good customer service.
Yeah, and I quite like the way that so many of the channels are weaving in that instant CSAT into what they do. So a lot of web chat providers give you that option to kind of leave feedback almost immediately at the end of that. Grab a score there and then because it's current and relevant. Yet to see many of them replying to those actually once I've left some damning feedback as I did yesterday, but that's a conversation for another day. But most, go on, yep.
And just a question, the VOC on there stands for Voice of the Customer.
Voice of the Customer.
Which is effectively customer feedback now.
Essentially, yeah. So this is all kind of quite frightening stuff, really, isn't it? And there seems to be an awful lot going on, and there's loads of sort of different approaches and thoughts, and we're kind of overrun with examples of how customers are taking back control, and it all can be quite scary, really. But the reality is, our customers used to be kind of more like the sheep, and you've probably, if you've seen Ember or any of our my peers presenting, you would have sort of heard this analogy before, and I make no apologies for using it again because I think it kind of resonates well. Hopefully you agree. But traditional customers or customers of the past were used to being held in queues. We tell them the processes they're going to follow. We don't tell them why. They feel like they're on their own and there's no one there to help them. And lo and behold, every opportunity we get to talk to them, we try and sell something to them. So it really wasn't a very good place to be as us as consumers. But that's the kind of models we built at the time, wasn't it? But now they're changing very much into this kind of wolf-like characteristic where they're in communities and forums. They demand and they have a thirst for instant information and access to what's going on, and you have to provide it. They tell you when they want to speak to you. They tell you what they expect from you now. They demand transparency. It's not good enough to hide behind policies and processes anymore, right? You've got to be, why are you doing it this year? But why is it taking you 3 days to deliver my product? Why do I have to speak to another department in order to get this resolved? Just sort it out, right? So that kind of movement of sheep into wolves is something we've seen. And what does that mean for us? It means that traditionally when we had sheep as customers, sheep as customers, we were sort of dominant, right? We were in control of the agenda. We could pick which customers we wanted to talk to and when we wanted to talk to them. Now we're sort of at the mercy of this customer base. We don't really know how to handle it. We're not really sure when they're going to speak to us and what they're going to want from us, and we don't even know if we've got people trained with the right skills and ability to even handle it. So it's all pretty frightening stuff, really. But that's where we need to sort of start to take back some of the agenda, really, and get back into a position where we are a lot more in control of how we're managing customers within the confines of giving them that feeling of choice and transparency and ability to kind of work with us in the way they want to work with us. Yeah. So fundamentally, then, we think there are 6 key principles which need to be considered when kind of thinking about your consumer-based organisation, really. So, customers are demanding that level of integrity from us. You have to stand up proud of your business, your services, your customer service, your people, the way you interact with people. It's a source of pride, not a source of concern, or at least it should be. You are visible from all directions, and I think when you add an extra layer to this, is we as managers are also visible to feedback from our staff, and we certainly should be. So being able to kind of not only be upfront and transparent with our customer base, let's be upfront and with our staff as well, because they're also consumers too, right? So therefore, gathering that opinion is important, and allowing those outlets for them to tell you how they're feeling, what they're doing is critical. It's not just about managing the channels. It's actually about listening. It's actually about doing something with it. A lot of people have social media, right? Yeah. But they're not actually responding to social media. They're like looking onwards to see what happens with it, and we're not actually doing anything with it. And that's a couple of examples of that. And leveraging the power of one. You know, Dave Carroll and United Breaks Guitar, I think, is the classic example of that, of the impact that that one individual had on his experience of that broken guitar. Put paid to, you know, an awful lot of good work from United. So and so therefore you can't afford to overlook that lone voice, that one person who seems to be sort of complaining about something which is a frustration to you, but what they can do with that is quite marked. Yeah. So just going to take out a few examples of where we've sort of seen this in action. You might have seen this Broadway Hotel. Yeah, you remember it. Okay, so this couple, so the Broadway Hotel built into their terms and conditions that actually if you posted a negative review of their hotel, then they would actually fine you £100. And this couple, the Jenkinsons, actually did stay there, and they actually did put a negative review about the hotel, and because they were fined. And the BBC picked this up as well as there are other news organisations out there, but the BBC picked this one up, and it sort of became viral overnight, and the Broadway Hotel were pilloried for this sneaky way of trying to limit sort of public opinion. And the latest is you can now buy that hotel for £375,000 for a 42-room hotel in Blackpool. So they've almost paid the ultimate price there of trying to manipulate, you know, consumer attempts to sort of give feedback, right? So, you know, not one to repeat, I would suggest. Some companies, this example here is from the Charles Tyrwhitt website, are very public in their publication of customer feedback, good or bad. So the use of FIFO here by Charles Tyrwhitt, and if you click on their site, you actually see all of the positive and negative feedback that they're getting. But they sort of stand up and be counted, right? That's full transparency. They post in there what they're going to do about it, and they apologise, and you know, so they're managing public complaints in a very public way. But clearly, 97% of their customers think they're doing a pretty good job. So you know, that's encouraging. But an interesting sort of way of working. I wonder how many other people would be. Well, I think that's a poll, in fact, actually. So as we move on to a poll, John T, around how many other people are doing this.
Yeah, we're going to just ask the question of you. Would you publish real-time customer service figures on your website? The answers are yes, we're publishing them already. We think it's a good idea to do that. No, we're not publishing them, and probably not intending to, and or you're not sure. So how many people do you think, would you say, are publishing them already together? I wouldn't say it would be very high.
Oh, very low, I'd imagine, actually. Yeah, I'd love to think it was higher.
I was pleased to see the John Trude example. I think that's pretty cool. Or the Charles Trude example, but I haven't come across them myself, so I'll be curious. Okay,
here we are. So the overall answer is 8% yes, 55% think it's a good idea. Yeah. Only 16% don't think it's a good idea. So I think quite a nice endorsement there, Simon. So
yeah, good. That'll be interesting to see how that plays out, then, isn't it? Actually, so I think I might start investing in some online customer feedback companies. That's going to be the yeah. I know you are. How about that? As if luck would happen. Let me just click on that. Right. So okay. Right. So here's an interesting example. I don't know how many of you have come across Uber. The idea of Uber is that it's a sort of a taxi application to be able to kind of find a taxi near you and book it. And it's quite normal, I think, for us to be rating your taxi driver or rating the service provider. This one takes it to a slightly different level, where drivers are actually rating you as passengers. So depending on whether you've been good in that taxi, whether you paid, whether you did whatever else people do in taxis late at night, that then appears on you, your personal record. So taxi drivers themselves are then starting to choose which customers they in fact want to serve, which is quite interesting. So how many of your customers would have something to say about you, or what would you say about your customers? And I don't know, we talked in the past about choosing your customers and which ones don't you want. I'm not sure I've seen many organisations not have a customer, actually, for various reasons, but maybe that'll take us into a slightly different direction. I think some of you may have heard this story, and this very much relates to this idea of managing contact, not just listening, so doing something with it. So Lily Allen was having some problems with her broadband and tweeted to say if anybody knew the CEO of BT. And that tweet was actually sent, I think it was just after 6 o'clock, I believe, during the week. and they didn't do anything about it until 9 o'clock the next morning. And the reason for that was because at this point in time, their Twitter team or their social media team actually went home at 6 o'clock. So therefore, whilst the clever technology picked up on the fact that actually somebody had tweeted this negative statement and that it was a VIP, there was actually no one there to respond to it because that team didn't come into work again until 9 o'clock the next morning. And with 2 million followers, that sort of quickly got out of hand. It was too late for them to really do anything about it because they'd left it sort of 12 hours before that team was available. So matching your, not just having the technology and the capability, but operationally, let's make sure we can handle this stuff when it's coming in, and aligning our opening hours to that when our customers are going to want to speak to us or engage with us is clearly critical. She had a similar experience a couple of weeks later with Thames Water, who actually did have a 24-hour service because they're kind of used to doing that stuff in the water industry. People have leaks and floods and outages overnight, so therefore they had a 24/7 team there. And they were enabled to handle the Twitter sort of component as well. So they picked up on it and they were able to resolve that quite quickly. So that turned a negative into a positive very quickly. Support networks and connecting. This is an interesting model. So GiftGaff don't have a recognised sort of first or second tier help desk. They rely entirely on their community. So GiftGaff are a mobile phone provider, and they operate a scheme called Payback, where if you, depending on the rating of your, if somebody has a problem and they post it on their community and you go in and you resolve that problem for them, then you can earn rewards for the quality of that response and whether it fixed the problem for them. And in doing so, they provide you with a payback, which is minutes towards your mobile phone contract. So not only is the business not spending money on help desk resource, they're actually getting their, they've got their outlet is a much cheaper one, but also giving something back through the payback scheme. So there's something in it for us. So neat, how else can we monetize that community support model, which some of us are kind of talking or thinking about doing. So. I keep answering my own poll questions, John.
So here's the question. What is your view on customer-to-customer support? Are you doing it already? Are you planning to do it? Do you think it wouldn't be suitable for us, or do you think it's just a plain scary concept? So if you'd just like to vote on that, and we'll just see what's coming through. But it's quite powerful because if you can get your customers providing other customer support, I mean, there should be a fairly strong cost benefit in doing that.
I think so. I mean, Apple have been doing it for a while, and they always sort of come back to that sort of community, or even some of the IT sort of based sort of solutions. They seem to have that community, but GiftGaff actually rewarding you for doing it financially, that's quite neat. That makes it quite different, doesn't it?
So let's have a look at the results. 22% are doing it already, 25% are planning it, 19% think it's a scary concept,
isn't it?
And 39% say it wouldn't be suitable. Mike, that's quite a surprise there. Is that just people reticent to, going transparent is quite a tough call if you're used to being sort of secretive.
Yeah, and maybe as well like the complexity, if you like, of the product, or if there's lots of downstream multi-parties involved. I mean, in theory it should be able to be done, but it's curious as to why that hesitation will be there, really.
And I guess, Simon, the sad bit is if you're not doing it, then there's probably someone else to do it.
That's the thing. If 22% are doing it already, that'll start creeping up. Yeah. So you may be forced to do it, even if you think it's not suitable, right? You might be forced to do it. So this is where we lose control. Good example of sheep and wolves and how losing control of that agenda. So. And I think there's I don't know if you've seen this, another recent example, but Kelvin McKenzie, the ex-editor, has come up with this site about Spokesman Said, and this is actually one example of a chap who happens to work for Ember, Mike Havard, who posted a complaint into the Spokesman Said website, and they will then review the complaint and decide whether it's an issue they want to take up with the company on your behalf and actually fight for your resolution. And so Mike posted he was having a challenge with his Volvo car key. How much of that is his car key and how much of that was Mike, I don't know, but that was the reality. And they agreed to take it up on his behalf and go into battle to sort of get Volvo to turn around what they perceived to be a rip-off of £300 to get a replacement key. So people getting together and that kind of community getting together to kind of take up your issue for you is quite an interesting one, actually. So I wonder how many people would live in fear of that happening. I think just very quickly, retail, as part of that multi-channel mix, lots of emerging trends happening in retail. Many of our customers maintain an on-site presence in terms of Ember's client base. And I think it's some quite interesting stuff. This idea of Barclays trying to drive footfall into their branches through their sort of digital eagles. You can sort of go in and get a lesson on everything from how to get online right through to teaching your kid code, which is really interesting. So I get the kind of link with online and online banking, but actually teaching your kid code, I guess that's about getting you in early and trying to build those customers of the future. But the payback on that is probably some time away if you're talking about 6 or 7-year-olds. So it's quite a neat early investment. So driving footfall into retail is still big, and then how do you use that data and track that sort of insight across the other channels? I've been into the retail bank, and what does that do for the conversation I next have with you in a contact centre, which I know is very much your space, Mike. So, and Amazon starting to recognise that they actually need an outlet for people to go and be able to touch and feel product, or go and collect, or go and return. They opened their first store in New York just before Christmas, and I understand they're sort of looking for more sites both across the US and also in the UK. So, the ultimate online retailer starts to consider some sort of customer engagement. We couldn't even find a phone number for them some time ago, and now they're going to have a store on the high street, right? So that's an interesting sort of twist in their sort of way of working. So just to sort of end, really, a lot of stuff going on in there, and how do we kind of make a plan, and what are we going to do differently? And so our kind of thoughts are, we're all working in various different industries, so we really need to recognise what do our customers want to do. So not every customer is going to want to do everything across every channel with you. Voice may still be king for you, and you stick with it and you do it brilliantly. But being really clear on going where your customers are, is a clear bit of advice for us, really. If they're not going to interact with you or buy stuff via social media, then you probably need to prioritise that lower than offering a website or even a retail presence. Understanding what your competitors are doing. So what are your competitors in comparison organisations doing? Because they're driving the agenda for what your customers expect from you as well. So being able to tap into that competitor and comparison analysis, I think, is critical. Being clear on what do you want to be? Do you want to be number one at? Do you want to be the best in the market, or actually do you want to be the first at being second? We've got a number of customers who actually don't want to be the leader. They want to be the first at being second. Just let somebody else make the mistakes first. But being clear on where you want to stand on that continuum, I think, is really important. Being cognizant of what you can actually do. So what can your business actually deliver? So more and more we're coming up against this sort of change capability issue where people don't really have the skills and capability in-house to be able to deliver to these new multi-channel environments. The call recording guys of the past were really strong in their telephony and how to handle the call recording. They're less capable when it comes to integrating multi-channel WFM capabilities, right? So, and it's not just about that initial deployment, it's about ongoing support and development, and how am I actually going to manage and grow and deliver that change that I'm going to need long term, not just in day one, and how my suppliers going to help me kind of achieve that. The business case is everything. That's really right at the heart of what Ember does, and why we sort of continue to support our clients is you've got to know your numbers, and importantly, you've got to be able to speak the language of the boardroom and help them see what the commercial imperative is behind why you want to do things differently. It's not a case of anymore of saying it's just the right thing to do. Actually, you need to be able to stack that up with, return on investment. And being clear on what that target operating model needs to look like. And I think that sort of extends beyond just the technology, or the buildings. It's actually about the people and the skills, who's going to have what skill on the front line and when. When are they going to be transacting? It goes right to the heart of your people strategy. So having a very clear target operating model, both which covers people, process, and technology, which is such a glib phrase, is critical to getting a successful multi-channel kind of organisation embedded and delivering. Some of our clients there, I won't dwell on that too long, but we've done this sort of TOM development work for a number of clients, and as we say, being good company by coming to work with us. So, and that's me, John.
Brilliant. Well, we're going to jump across to the new desk now. So we'll pass the baton across to Devon. So Devon, if you can take us through. Thank you very much for that, Simon. Devon, if you can take us through some of the opinions. I think there's quite a lot of feedback been going on about the session, so it'd be good to go through that. Devon, across to you.
Yep, so we're going to start with an audience opinion today. It's in relation to the news story that we had. Alex says, it's often found with new computer game releases. Overall capacity is enough, but not to cover the significant spikes on release day, and in this example, Black Friday. Sadly, unless you support overcapacity 24/7 or agent availability in our case, you will always see these issues. Simon, we've got a question in from Neris, who says, as more brands ask their customers for voice of customer feedback, do you think consumer fatigue will set in, particularly if services don't improve and take-up will decline?
Yeah, I do, and I think there's this sort of horrible phrase that I heard about 5 years ago, which is survey toxicity, which is where we are, as consumers, getting bored of being asked for our opinion all the time. And I think how often I have a particular broadband provider that I work with, and every time that I speak to them about my personal broadband connection, I seem to get asked 4 quick questions, which are never 4 quick questions, and it's often the same things that you've asked me before. Right. So I think getting cuter on who you're asking for what information has got to be the next step, so that you're asking them for different questions each time you're interacting with them and learning from it, not just using the same thing over and over again.
Perfect. Thank you for that, Simon. Alex says, engaging the wolves and showing them why you are the leader of the pack is important. Without stamping your mark, they can run all over you. We've got another opinion in now from Alex as well, who's been busy. With the use of smartphones, it's very easy to send a URL via SMS and has a greater impact than another email. Mike, do you agree with this?
I do, yeah. I think, like Simon mentioned earlier, about sort of like bringing all the channels into a common or single dialogue in a way, it makes sense, and that's a good example. Certainly around like the validation or verification of someone's identity. So like email, SMS chat, or even chat, or even SMS. Just the tools are there, if you like, to be used in smart strategies, and to me, that's a smart strategy to use multiple tools.
Okay, brilliant. Another opinion in now from Chris, who says, customers have so much information at their hands that it is no longer possible to release an inferior product or service and expecting marketing to cover the cracks. So this new breed of customer is helping and forcing a greater quality of products and service to be released. This benefits the customer and the business world. Another tip in now, I really like this one. It says, embrace the wolves, keep watching them, listen to them, pretend to be them, and build practical but adjustable routes for them to embrace you back.
Mm-hmm. Sounds like the wolf analogy.
It does. It sort of resonated, doesn't it? Yeah.
Another tip in now, we have one dedicated agent on social media issues from 8 p.m. to 8 a.m. and then a team from Manila from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. And now another question. How do you incentivize customer-to-customer support with an organization? Mike, do you have an answer for this one?
So I think certainly you've got to create the sort of the forum for that to take place. So in a way, the obligation is on you to sort of create this sort of stimulus that attracts the customers to feel that they can, if you like, post some issues, and if you like, for other customers to be able to respond. So in that sense, you got to, as part of your online strategy, you've got to make that sort of space available and market it and kind of make it visible, to your customers. So that's certainly a starting point. Simon, do you
I think there's an element of what's in it for me.
Yeah.
I quite like the gift gap thing of actually paying back, So I don't know how long Apple are going to continue to offer it for free. I mean, which they do. But then I kind of think, isn't it nice that as communities and society, we're quite prepared to jump in and help each other out without there being a give to receive. I guess it could be me next time who's the one who needs some help, so therefore I'll give some help this time in the hope that someone can help me in the future. I quite like it. So
what a number of organisations do is not necessarily, but sort of semi-incentivized. They watch who the people who are contributing are, and then invite them along to open days.
Right.
So we're doing a sort of corporate jolly. Would you like to join us at this day where we're going to do our new product? Or would you like to even just come in and road test our new product before we launch it? People sort of, so there's no financial value, but there's a kudos value.
Like early visibility of new things.
Yeah, Yammer's sort of, many organisations using Yammer in order to engage with those communities to get that kind of community insight on new letters or new websites or whatever it might be, seems to be an interesting area.
Well, thank you very much for that, Devon. We're going to be jumping back to your questions a bit later on. We're going to jump across to Mike Murphy, who's now going to share some thoughts on multi-channel technology trends. So, Mike, would you like to share your ideas with us?
Hello, Jonty. Yeah, these are, so I've really got two sort of themes really here. So what I call like the new way of thinking about multi-channel, and sort of building upon what Simon was discussing, and sort of building upon what I've been observing myself, if you like, as I'm talking to other operators. But also what I want to do as well is kind of touch a little bit as well on the traditional way of handling multi-channel, because multi-channel has been around for a while. We're all kind of used to email. It's like more than 10 years. So in that sense, email, chat, web, SMS, for example, they've been around for quite a while. But are we actually doing them properly? And in a way, as a sort of second part of my bit, I want to sort of just touch on that, because I think we're making some fundamental mistakes, which is just tripping us up and causing us some problems. So if I start with the new way of thinking about multi-channel, and what we're introducing here really, and we kind of talked about this, it was last year, Jotty, wasn't it? Just in autumn. So it's this notion of social customer service, or in a way it's kind of scrutinizing your online sort of presence, and are you sort of giving an equal presence to online servicing as you are to online buying? And that's really the sort of the gist of what we're getting at here. And what we're sort of experiencing, or what we're noticing, is that there is an awful lot of investment being made by organizations in helping their customers to buy more. And they're getting quite sophisticated, and people like Amazon will be right up here with this kind of capability. They're very cute and very informed and very strategic in how they're helping customers. People who bought this like to buy this, and other strategies of sort of pushing or suggesting good products for you to buy based upon your purchasing history. So in that sense, there's quite a lot of sophistication there, and we're sort of thinking, well, that's great and good to see the sales side working nicely. But what actually is happening on the service side, and is there an equal amount of time and investment and strategy and thinking and importance, if you like, being put on that side of the house? So from that perspective, then we kind of thought, well, let's actually ask the audience, and over to you, Jonty. Let's put up this question and see what they say.
We want to ask the question: what percentage of your online, I guess, your website spend is actually spent on customer support? So is it 50% or more? Is it 10 to 49%? Is it 2% to 9%? Is it 1% or less? Or is it simply you've got no idea of what percentage is spent on customer support? So be interesting to see the results. Mike, I'm gathering and guessing an awful lot of people probably won't be able to measure this.
Well, I think if you feel that an FAQ is your customer support, then the number could be quite high. But I don't think that at all, really. I think it's part of your customer support, but it tends to be, if FAQ doesn't help me, I end up having to reach the contact center, typically. So it'll be curious to see what actually, show me how I can get fully fulfilled, if you like, online. That's the curious score I'm looking for.
Well, here's the result. Only 5% have got more than half. Mm-hmm. There's a decent number here. 22% have got at least 10% spend. 18% spend between 2 and 9%. But the biggest majority there, 47%, can't track what percentage is spend, which presumably means it's probably on the low side, I would say.
I'd say it's on the low side, and also I think it's a good question, I think, for you to take into your colleagues, be they on the web design side or whether they're on the financial side. Just have a think about that particular point. I think it's an important one, and certainly from our perspective, we think it's one that we can all leverage from and maybe do a better job.
It'd be interesting to know how that ties in with call volume, because I guess the call volume would be the complete opposite of that result in terms of what percentage is sales versus service.
But then also, what's the reason for the call volume? And is it a case where, because I'm not getting satisfied online, I'm having to generate calls? If I was satisfied online, maybe I wouldn't have to call.
So I think you've got some examples of this, Mike.
We have some great examples, actually, yeah. And really, these are just sort of snapshots from brands which are out there. They're pretty leading brands, successful brands. And like I said about Amazon, you can see a very nice, sort of familiar way of actually doing online shopping here, with lots of content, filtering, ratings, customer reviews. It's friendly. The kind of things I need to help me make my decision are right there, and it's very easy and instructive for me to sort of add to my cart. So from that perspective, as a shopping experience, I'm kind of expecting this now, but you can see it's quite sophisticated, and it's kind of grown over time into what we're seeing and what we're using. But then on that same brand, when we kind of look to sort of reach in for some assistance because guess what, something that I purchased is now broken. What I'm finding now, it's a very sort of static and very limited and sort of company-centric type of impression here really, and I'm not starting to sort of feel so excited as I was when I was doing the buying stage. And actually the fact that as a multi-channel webinar today, they're offering me sort of like 2 means of contact, a 1-800 number and an email. Well, thanks guys. So from that perspective, it's quite an ordinary experience is the point that we're making here, and that's just one brand. So if we take another one, then
I think ordinary would be pushing it. I think otherwise would be
yeah,
word I would use.
Yeah. So again, and the so like the bullets on the side are the same. So in that sense, the content, the filtering, the ratings for this brand Nordstrom, it's a pretty high-end retailer in North America. All the things that we would sort of need there to make a wise investment are right there from a selling perspective. But then when we go to the customer service side, or I need some help, we're back to the sort of like limited content and a pretty ordinary experience. Now, give Nordstrom credit. We have a chat invitation, which is quite interesting, along with email and a variety of phone numbers. But it's all kind of very, very simplistic. So our suggestion will be, let's try and change this, because really the online experience and from a buying perspective versus the online experience as a service perspective is very disjointed. And surely it's time that we kind of try and correct this really and enhance the service experience and really use this as an opportunity for you and your brand to sort of stand out from the rest, which is what it's all about really. So from that perspective, the notion, if you will, of social customer service, or kind of presenting the availability of your support resource right on your website live, that's really what we're going to on this particular sort of strategy. So giving the power of routing, if you like, to your customer visually on your website, allowing them to sort of search for the person they want to interact with right there on your website, showing the profiles of your agents right there on your website, their availability, their wait time, the ratings that previous customers have given those agents, and then, if you will, inviting a way to connect with that customer depending upon how the conversation goes. So right now what we're seeing is we're bringing the live activity in the contact center right up into your website. So kind of building on the Charles Truett example that we saw earlier, where they're kind of giving a satisfaction score. I'm talking about here is like showing colleagues live and showing your colleague performance live, and that's what we're advocating here. So you're certainly in control of the services and information you want to present, but the idea is that now the customer feels very, very empowered. And to me, this is kind of more feeling like how I felt when I was buying, because I've got choices. I can click on my language choice, the actual brand of the thing I want to buy. I can search for the people I wanted to talk to, but in different ways, by maybe their rating, by their name, by how long they've worked for this company. So I can start to decide that, yeah, this guy seems really smart in answering my question. I can relate to this guy. He's got similar interests to me. And again, this is where the social element comes into it. It's all kind of familiar. We're used to seeing people's profiles and people's skills and sort of preferences and what they like to do as part of our social media living. And here we are seeing it from a customer service point of view, which is quite helpful and complementary. So when I say a different way of looking at sort of multi-channel, now that we have this sort of our preferred agent that we want to interact with, we're inviting, if you like, as a consumer, I would like this guy Raoul to email me, and I might want him to email me at 2 o'clock or email me now. These are the sort of powers that I have now as a empowered consumer, and I think this is the kind of way we should be driving online customer service going forward. So from that perspective, let's ask the audience something.
So here's an audience question for the chat room. What is your opinion about customers selecting agents based on skill levels that you publish on the website, or availability levels that you have on the website? Do you think that's a good idea? Do you think that's a scary idea? Do you think it's appropriate for your business or not? Because this is really taking that transparent organization much beyond service levels.
And remember, Simon's paranoia slide.
Yeah, exactly. I love it. It's quite a great idea.
So Alex says, I think it's an amazing idea, but could significantly impact agent morale. Marion says would be great. Chris says, absolute brilliant idea. Improves the agent skill set and gives the customer what they want. So it also encourages agents to self-develop. Abhishek says, not a good idea, because there would be consistency issues in the long run. I guess you've probably got those consistency ideas ready, but they're not so visible.
Indeed.
Edwin says it's a good idea. Sheriff thinks it's an amazing idea. And Lane says, I think you should try to service customers where possible on their channel of choice if they are on the website.
Yep.
Don't route them to the phone. Naheem says it would be an HR nightmare. Eric says, I think it's great on paper, but how trustworthy is the information? Would agents who perform poorly be published as such on the website? And it says, based on availability,
Absolutely.
would be a good idea. Veronica says, I love it.
Yeah.
I'm going to suggest it to our COO because we're only implementing our new telephony system at the moment. The only fear I have would be scheduling, utilization, or occupancy. So all these ideas, they're great until you get to the management team.
Find a way around it.
Here I am. Excellent.
Brilliant. Mike.
So I'm back on? I am, yes, a big pardon. Yeah, okay. So from that perspective, that was just a kind of an insight, if you like, for us in what we're sort of seeing about the new way of doing multi-channel. However, like I say, we're familiar with this multi-channel sort of notion. It's been around for years. And really this is where I think we're all making sort of some fundamental and sort of simple mistakes, because I bet in the audience that we have on here today, there's lots of people who are working as the email team or the chat team or the social team, the inbound or the outbound team. And as far as the operation is concerned, I am an expert in email. I only do email, and from that perspective, that's where I'm kind of siloed in my work type. And for me, if you like, when I see silos, I start to get sort of like a bit twitchy, because it's not a good thing. It's not a healthy thing, and actually it's a costly thing. And certainly, for one thing, it doesn't make life easier for the customer, because there'll be queues on one side and availability on the other, and you're just going to miss it because it's on a different system. I've seen some centres where the manager is telling me that email is a priority in my centre, and then it's voice, and then it's chat, and I'm thinking, well, really, does that make sense from your customer's point of view, really, or is that your point of view? And then another example might be, guys thinking they're really cool about the fact that we're doing a 4-hour SLA on email. It's like, really? 4 hours? That's such a long time to respond to an email that kind of appears in seconds. So, yes, it's better than 24 hours, but oh my goodness, it's 2015 for God's sake. Like we've been doing email a long, long time, and from a customer service point of view, we would argue that if these are the signs or these are the things you're seeing in your centres today, then we would argue that multi-channel actually is not being taken that seriously, and you really got to start thinking about getting a proper multi-channel strategy going. And from that perspective, let's be clear, and let nobody be in any doubt. Your voice, yes, still is quite a chunk, if you like, of our interactions, but absolutely the new channels are sort of pressing in quite dramatically, making their presence felt. And I know centres which are fully chat, I know centres which are fully email. But if you like, the availability, the abundance, the presence, if you will, of multi-channel is a fact, and it ain't going to go away. Therefore, we should embrace it. I think still, unfortunately, it's sort of being put over in the corner because it's kind of easy to do. But like I say, that really isn't getting professional. And from our perspective, these are the things that we would advocate as far as running a proper multi-channel sort of operation. So, all channels to all agents, absolutely fact. Every interaction type is treated the same, with the same response time, the same speed. Simon mentioned about doing quality management and things like on multi-channel. Absolutely, it's a must. Whether it's an SMS or a web chat or an email, I have to record it. I have to see how the agent is doing in responding to it, and I have to give the guy a score whether he's good or bad, or how can I coach him to become a better person. So from that perspective, reporting on everything, the service level for everything. These tools are there, and the benefits are there, and certainly in the point about workforce management that the lady mentioned on the question, absolutely is kind of part of the the single queuing strategy, if you will. So from that perspective, let the technology, if you like, deliver the work to the various people based on their proficiency to actually do that skill, or their desire to actually do that skill. So from that perspective, I can equally share work now nicely amongst my teams. So these are the things that we think are the right ways to be handling multi-channel. Please, please, please get away from these silos. And then, I just want to make this point really, because if technology is holding you back, and certainly with silos where you have multiple systems, a system doing email, a system doing calls, and a system doing chat, you're in that situation, you're stuck. So from that perspective, if it's holding you back in that fashion, then just bite the bullet and actually deal with it. Because really, by working in silos, you have wastage going on. You've got confusion for your agents, you've got confusion for your customers, and you're wasting money. You can't deliver a consistent experience because you've got, like I say, queues in one part and availability in the other. And really, you're not getting a good quality culture, if you like, throughout your organization, because people will feel a bit odd that, well, why can't I be on the email team? Well, you can't because. Or why can't I be on this team? Well, you can't because. So why can't I just have all interactions? I'm a customer service person. I don't care what the channel is. I do great customer service, and I can do it any way that the customer might want it to be. That's how I would feel if I was an agent. So from that perspective, I would sort of ask you to think hard, because the cloud is now making these things very, very affordable. And I would say that, you know, here's the sort of like the sort of the tagline that we use in our organization. So, you know, if we do our job right, we help our customers make themselves very competitive in the market. And that's really, to me, the benchmark that you've got to be thinking about your operation. Are you competitive in your marketplace? Are you one of the guys that's in the leading pack, or are you one of the guys that's actually having their lunch eaten by your competitors? That's the thing I would leave us with. So please work to professionalize your operation.
Thank you very much for that, Mike, because I think we've probably spent about 5 years where things have not been refreshing their technology. The economy's been bad, and it's now getting to quite a big pain point. Simon, I think you've been finding that as well.
Yeah, I think we seem to have woken up, right? We haven't invested in 5 years, but customers have continued to develop what they want. So therefore, we've got a bit of catch up to do here.
Right.
Okay, we're going to jump. Thank you very much for that, Mike. Some great food for thought there. We're going to jump across to Devon in the chat room. What's been going on in the chat room, Devon?
Okay, so we've got an opinion in from Jenny. It says, it would be interesting to see if customers would choose to wait longer for a top-rated agent. Mike, we've got a question in that says, what's the applicability of customer-to-customer support in B2B service models?
Simon, do you have a view on customer-to-customer support in business service rather than business-to-consumer?
As always, it's down to the product, I think, isn't it?
Yeah.
But I think those lines are blurring between what you expect in your personal life and what you expect in your business life. So therefore, my expectations are that it would be available to me, even if it were in a business-to-business environment, because that's the way I do stuff.
Maybe it'd be a smaller pool of people to draw from, but it's probably a very highly interested pool if they're all users of that particular technology or
a lot of technology already has business-to-business support for computing products.
Yeah.
You'd be surprised, I think, if your community were able to sort of have those exchanges. I think you'd surprise yourself pretty quickly how vigorous they could get in sort of helping each other.
I'd definitely use it if I didn't have to pay for it.
Well, yeah.
Okay, Elaine says, the comment Simon made earlier about not being able to find a telephone number on Amazon is interesting in that they provide great customer service online, so in theory there should be less need to phone them. Many customers talk about digital channels, but they do not fully embrace this to the level that Amazon have. Do we need to be braver and trust our customers more? Simon?
They will find a way. I don't think that's changed over as long as I've been in the industry. Is no matter what we try and do in order to try and force people down the channels we want them to go into, if they've got a bee in their bonnet, as I did in my particular Amazon experience, and I want to physically speak to somebody because I'm fed up with what I had, then I'm going to find a way of finding one, right? Whether I have to go online or tweet, you know, has anybody got the number for? I will find a way. So I think you're right. I think there is an element of trust. I think there's an element of, but we're perhaps trying to control the agenda too much, and we need to just recognise that customers will find the course of least resistance.
Brilliant, thank you. We've got a tip in now that says, I was informed by one of our customer experience team after loads of studies that we should not contact the customer, they call it touch the customer, through all the channels more than 3 times a day and 5 times a week. We've got an opinion now that says personal preference plays a big part, I feel. I can't stand it when I need to go to FAQ to get answers. Prefer speaking to somebody. And a final opinion today. I would rather use my computing skills to find the answer first time rather than possibly waste time on hold or get the wrong answer.
That's almost 2 completely divergent views there.
But shame on the organisation who's going to put them on hold and give a wrong answer. But to me, that's it. You know how that's so sad.
Yeah.
I mean, like, people just seem to think that I'm running a contact center, therefore, like you said,
Acceptable.
I will dictate how good or bad it's going to be, and it's so wrong.
And I guess that's all about allowing people the channel of choice. Some people prefer the phone. Some people prefer to go through FAQ. So
and it varies by transaction, depending on what you want to do. I'm never going to apply for a mortgage using web chat.
Right. I'm never going to have a pleasant discussion about Twitter.
No, exactly.
But you know, it's
okay, well that's coming up to the top of the hour. It's been wonderful so far. In 1 or 2 words, if you could put into the chat room, what did you like best about the webinar? If you'd like to type that. What did you like best about today's webinar? just a brief reminder that slides are also available on Call Center Helper. If you go to callcenterhelper.com/recorded webinars, you'll be able to see the slides, as well as a replay of the webinar, which Claude is uploading in a couple of minutes' time. That should be available. We'll also be announcing the winning tip on Twitter before 3 o'clock. We've got lots more webinars in our series, and just like to say a very, very big thank you, as ever, to our panelists. Simon, but thank you very much for, I think, some really, really very unique, fantastic
thanks, Tom.
comment there. And Mike Murphy, thank you very much for, I think, some really thought-provoking. I think we're really starting to stimulate the thought buds of our audience. Thank you, Mike.
Thanks, Jonty, and thank you everybody for joining.
So thanks everyone for joining us, and hopefully we'll be seeing you all again this time next week. Thanks then, everyone. Bye-bye.